a year on, and now we have non-binding offtake agreements for 60,000 tons of material. That's double our stage one capacity.
Hello and welcome to Paydirt TV. I'm Dominic Piper. Today we're joined by David Christensen, Managing Director of Renascor Resources. David, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Dan. Pleasure to be here.
David, the last time we seen you in a Paydirt event was at the Battery Minerals Conference we hosted back in June. And looking at the last 6 months, or 5 or 6 months since then, it's been a pretty remarkable time for the company. Not only have you basically doubled the share price, it seems like you're really close to coming up with a final investment decision on your Sevier graphite project in South Australia. How have you managed to achieve so much in such a short space of time?
Yeah, thanks very much. Look, I think two things have happened. One thing is that the clean energy space has gotten a much closer look because of some of the larger policy thematics that are going on in the world right now and the move to electric vehicles. So that's been great for anybody associated in the battery mineral sector. And the second thing is we've hit a few key milestones along the way ourselves, and we've gotten granted major project status by the Australian government. That was a key move for us. And we entered into a major offtake agreement with POSCO that really has opened up our possibilities. And I think it's gotten a lot more eyes on our stock since that time.
Let's have a look at the project itself then, because it is a little bit unique or unusual for an Australian resources project in that you've got the mining and concentration project out on the Eyre Peninsula there. Then you're looking at a sort of downstream facility at Port Adelaide, a spherical graphite project, production project. Let's start with the mine. I mean, most of the ASX listed graphite projects we see are in East Africa or elsewhere. Is Sevier competitive on a global scale?
Yeah, look, I think it is. And that's probably a good example. There are a number of new developments in East Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania that offer great new sources of graphite concentrates. And Sevier is right up there in terms of scale. Sevier is the second largest proven reserve in the world, the largest reserve outside of Africa. So in terms of offering graphite concentrates, it looks like one of a handful of really tier one undeveloped assets. I guess the difference is because of our location in a low sovereign risk, low risk country like Australia, it gives us the opportunity then not just to create a graphite concentrate product, but to move downstream and to have that vertically integrated project when we're creating both a concentrate and then a refined graphite product. And I guess one of the key difference is that refined graphite product goes exclusively into the lithium ion battery sector, which is the real growth in the graphite space. And so that's a potential differentiating factor of our project. And I think that's what's really gotten a lot of interest in the Sevier project.
To be able to realize those downstream refining ambitions, you obviously need the project itself. You've already looked at an expansion of that stage one capacity. You must be pretty confident, are you, that this project's going to hold up to be both an expanded mine and then provide the material for downstream?
Yeah, look, it really comes down to moving the material and getting offtake partners who are going to buy it. And that's been the challenge in graphite as an industrial mineral and now as a battery mineral, is to find someone who's going to buy enough of it to justify the construction capital requirement to get started. We came up with an additional downstream capacity of just under 30,000 tons per annum in the midpoint of 2020. Now, that was probably a stretch goal as we were coming out, in COVID and a lot of uncertainty, and we didn't know, what was going to happen in the global market. We're just a year on, and now we have non-binding offtake agreements for 60,000 tons of material. That's double our stage one capacity. So the ability to sort of produce not just 30 but more actually looks readily achievable, and it's really a matter of, look, do we do that initially or do we do that as a second stage? The market for battery minerals is is, and this is a thematic not just with graphite but with other minerals, the market is growing faster than the supply, and that means mines or potential mines like us need to look at how we're going to meet that ever-growing demand for material.
You mentioned the other battery minerals. Obviously, we're seeing lithium at the moment is absolutely flying, nickel as well, even though it's such a huge market. Is graphite tracking in the same direction? It can be quite an opaque market from a pricing perspective, but what's your take on it at the moment?
Yeah, look, graphite hasn't had the rocket under its reported price like we've seen, in particular in lithium. And that's for a number of factors, but one of them is just all the graphite concentrate and 100% of the graphite downstream product is coming out of China. We're not seeing the auctions for graphite. We're not seeing that increased pricing, but we are seeing increased price pressure from both a demand perspective, and again, largely within China and outside of China as well. But it hasn't caused that reported price to fly up yet. And I guess from our perspective, it's simply a matter of supply and demand, that we're seeing more battery cell manufacturers building gigafactories. That's leading to more announcements from the anode makers that they're building more anode manufacturing sites. We're getting more demand from anode manufacturers for our product, and inevitably this is going to reflect on price. So the kinds of movements we're seeing now in lithium, we think that's the future for graphite.
And obviously POSCO has been very active in both the lithium space and the graphite space. So it must be a huge tick of approval, is it, for Civior, that you've got a big active company like that committing to the project?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think one of the key things people are looking for is they're saying, look, is it possible to get non-Chinese offtake? And POSCO is the single largest buyer of the refined graphite product, purified spherical graphite, outside of China. That was quite helpful. And they've been quite careful about where they make their investments. And I think it's well known, coming into some of the larger groups, obviously Pilbara on the lithium side, they're a premier potential customer. They're a good customer for Australia. They're Australia's single largest private export customer. They have a long-term vision, and the fact that they're working with us, I think, gives us some external validation that I think is pretty important.
David, miners, Australian miners are obviously exceptional at what they do when it comes to mining and concentrating and creating a first step product. But we've had a bit of a checkered history when it comes to downstream and value addition. But we are seeing it now in the battery mineral space, not just in graphite, but in lithium and in nickel as well, producing value add products. How confident are you that Renascor has got the capabilities to build this downstream facility?
Yeah, look, I think we're very confident. We're about 5 years into our downstream process testing, and technically what we're looking to achieve is sort of exactly the same thing you see at the back end of a lot of processing units for mining operations in Australia. It starts out with a milling operation where we're using off-the-shelf milling equipment, and then a purification through a low temperature caustic bake, and then a couple of leach circuits. So technically, it doesn't have an extreme complexity in terms of chemical refining. It's more a matter of taking an existing process and being able to do it efficiently at scale. And this is the sort of thing that I think we in Australia are quite good at, is taking a large project, doing it well at scale. That's what we do at mining operations. At the secondary refining operation, that's exactly what we're doing. So we're very confident we're going to be able to do this, and not only do it, but do it quite well.
That's very heartening to hear. So when will you do it? What work have you got coming up now, between now and making a final investment decision on both parts of the project?
Yeah, so we basically have 3 streams of work that we're working on concurrently. On the regulatory side, we have our mineral lease for the upstream operation. We've put in our secondary application, the second part of the 2-step phases to be able to mine in South Australia. We're expecting to get that at the beginning part of the year. We'll have to get an approval for the downstream facility. And then on the technical side, it's all about doing detailed engineering and coming up with the right size. Again, we are looking at expanding either as a phase one, a larger phase one, and then definitely a phase two. And then finally, we have offtake. We have non-binding offtake. We need to convert that non-binding offtake to binding, and then that gets us to a final investment decision. Exactly how long that takes is unsure, but we expect to be within our final investment decision next year, and that would allow us to potentially start constructing next year, and then by 2023, starting to produce spherical graphite.
That's a perfect timeline if we're led to believe the projections for EV uptake in the rest of the decade. David, thanks for joining us today. Best of luck with the project, and perhaps early in 2022 we can catch up again. Maybe lockdowns permitting, we'll be able to come and visit the project over there in South Australia. Thanks for joining us.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Tom.